Well, hello, hello, hello. It's Andrew Jenkins, and this is a short countdown time until the various feeds catch up and settle down. Welcome to Leaders Live, folks, and we're hanging out with CEO of HyLabs, Dominic Whitecross, a savvy entrepreneur and owner of a fintech business, startup, and visionary in blockchain technology, folks. And we unravel what's behind the decentralised blockchain revolution that will affect us all in the next few years and what that will mean for businesses in the future. And our theme is Chain Chic or Chain Chic, unveiling the blockchain brilliance for business. Give us a quick hello, Dominic.
Good morning, Rob.
Brilliant. Good morning, good morning. And Mrs. Moderator herself. There we are.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. We're just waiting for the feed to come up, folks. So hopefully you're all on. And there we go. There's the feed. Let's just bring it on. Tap to join. They've changed there. Oh, yeah, we've got plenty of people online. That's brilliant. So there we go. 128th show, folks. So with Sarah, Dominic, me, Tilly, our LinkedIn marketing specialist from Marketing CX, and Healthy Minds Club, our sponsors this week. That's the team, folks. Wow. Wow, there we go. And yeah, so music by my Uncle Peter, Minor Blues. There we go. Fantastic, fantastic. Boom. And there we go. Boom. Oi, oi, people and hi, gang. It's Leaders Live Showtime, folks. Please give us a wave or a quick hello in the feed so we know who's online and introduce yourselves. That will be great. And so hurrah and huzzah. It's Leaders Live Showtime, folks, again. And it's just after 8:45 here in the UK, 8:45 a.m., by the way. So we are live with Leaders Live, spreading the love, folks, spreading the love. And we hope you enjoyed this. We hope you enjoyed the groovy build-up as well, gang. And we're delighted that we've been powered by Healthy Minds Club this morning, our this week's sponsor. And look out for who's sponsoring us each week. And please let us know if our audio is coming through okay too. And please interact with us as well. So if you're new to Leaders Live, we can see plenty of people online, by the way. So fantastic. So please please let us know you're online. Give us a quick hello in the feed. As I said, we're all about a dynamic weekly talk show that generates business through networking, through community, and through extraordinary conversations, just like we're going to have today, that inspire. And as I mentioned in the countdown, I'm Andrew Jenkins, and I host Leaders Live every week. And it's built an awesome community of like-minded leaders. So please don't be shy. We'd love you to introduce yourself, join in, interact with the comments, chat, ask questions as we go along. There'll be plenty of questions today because it's we're talking about blockchain, which is quite mysterious for some people, and including myself, actually. And we've got 3 simple rules: a safe community, mutual respect, no selling in the room, please. And our motto is I to the power of we. So please don't be shy. Say hello in the comments. We really need to see that so that we can we know people are on. And we've got you're starting to come in now. Great. It's a bit of a delay in the feed, so brilliant. And a really easy way that you can show your support for this free show and all the time and effort that we put into this show is you can use the little link called buymeacoffee.com/leaderslive. Buy me five, and you get a free half-hour coaching session, folks. And Sarah, our moderator, Mrs. Moderator, will put the link in the feed. There it is. And you get a shout out too. And it looks a bit like this. If I can do a quick test. Where's the test? Where's the test when you need it? I've lost the test. There it is. Blop. There it is. Hey, there it is. So it's just a bit of fun, and all proceeds go to the show, folks. So, and smash those likes too, folks, and those thumbs up. We really appreciate that. Keeps us motivated as well. Love that bell. And so, if you put it all together, what have you got? Yep, you've got it. Bibbidi, bibbidi, bobbidi, boo, and you'll be singing that song all day. So let's bring in this week's guest from CEO of HyLabs, Dominic Whitecross. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Nice, fresh morning on Dartmoor in Devon. So
Indeed. Yeah, it's a cold morning again. Winter seems to have struck us again. So please don't be shy. Please say hello to Dominic and ask questions as we go along. And Dominic, give us a quick introduction in terms of, tell us a little bit about yourself, Dominic. What is your business all about? It's a fintech business. And where are we going today? Let's start there.
We're going down a rabbit hole. I think that's the old adage for anything blockchain related.
Rabbit hole. Here we go. Lovely.
Yeah, prepare yourselves. No, so I've got a sort of varied background.
Mm.
For the last 10 plus years, I've run a family business, which is a digital automotive company. We sold vehicles through the internet rather than traditional forecourt.
Oh, wow.
Before that, I was trained to be a lawyer
Gosh.
and did my education in that and in
Mm.
marketing. So a bit of a mixed bag, really. So I've always had an interest in technology, and I got interested in sort of cryptocurrency and blockchain very early in 2017, I think it was, and it sort of caught the bug and started going down a lot of rabbit holes, trying to learn about the different types of blockchain use cases and all the sort of companies and blockchain projects out there at the time, and there were very few of them. Well, I say there were far fewer than there are today, and I got hooked.
You got hooked.
Really hooked by the mystique of cryptocurrency to a certain degree, but the technology more so. Running a digital automotive dealer, that sort of made me realize that there's a big world out there of how we can use technology for the greater good. And then fast forward to today, I met my co-founder, who happens to be my brother-in-law's best friend from school. We met on my brother-in-law's stag do. We spent 4 hours kayaking up the River Avon. We got put into a kayak together and said, "Look, you two like blockchain. You go on the road on the road water together."
Lovely.
And which is what we did. And before we knew it, we were talking about working together. So
brilliant.
Yeah. The rest of this is history.
So you're a little startup that's been going from how long now then? How long has HyLabs been going?
So the project itself started officially. We registered as a company as HyLabs in December 22.
Wow.
Prior to that, I actually started the project in sort of October time 21. And we were looking to be more sort of decentralized, purely blockchain focused. We were working with a couple of blockchain foundations who I'll mention later on. And we were sort of really working towards really digitizing the finance space from a blockchain perspective. But naturally, as all good journeys do, it takes you on sort of meandering road, and we hit a couple of roadblocks, and doing what you do best as an entrepreneur, you find a new way forward.
Find a new way forward. Yeah, and very briefly, you mentioned roadblocks. What kind of roadblocks did you come across?
Appetite, regulation.
Yeah.
The two biggest ones.
Yeah. So understanding what is it, and then of course hitting the regulation speed bump and the problems with getting over traditional regulations and things, or getting accommodating them, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's a lot of interest and desire from industries all over the world to use blockchain technology, and whilst I love the concept of doing that, I'm also a realist, and I do like to play devil's advocate a lot, as you probably find out through this interview. And I'll always challenge the narrative, because what is the point in using something if it doesn't give you the perceived benefit you set out to achieve from the start? It's a pointless effort.
So there's some challenges there in terms of integrating to a current technology as well, and somehow bridging that gap between what we're doing now and what the future will look like.
Correct.
Cool. Okay. So look, we've got plenty of people online today, and we are rather quiet in the feed, and we'd like to hear from you, so we know that you're listening and paying attention. And we've got an audience question to start you guys listening to interact with us. And the question is this: how many people are aware of what blockchain technology actually is and how it might be a catalyst for business change? And any thoughts on that would be really welcome. So I think Sarah's just put that in the feed at the moment. Yep, here it is. It's in the feed. There we go. And there's a delay in the feed, so that just gives me a chance to bring in Mrs. Moderator today. How you doing, Sarah?
Good morning. I
Good
think
morning.
everybody's a bit spellbound this morning. They're so busy listening, they're not commenting.
No, indeed. I think we've got one comment that's just
We
popped
have.
in.
So John Attridge,
Hello,
winding
John.
roads are created because the end point of the journey was not clearly pinpointed before the journey began. What is your, oh, here's a good one. What is your destination, Dominic?
That was your destination. There you go.
Good question.
Yeah.
The destination is really where the reason why we started. That is to actually give power back to business owners. So our key remit is to digitize finance to benefit business owners, to not just only give them better access to finance products themselves, but also reduce that cost. So there is a sort of a good feel factor around what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I suppose the ultimate sort of destination, John, thank you for the question, is really just saying, we just want to create efficiencies that are genuine, and trusted. And I think that's one of the key elements and benefits of blockchain is trust, is making
Trust.
sure that is there.
So put that into an example for us, so Anita can ask some questions as well. Because Anita said, "I'd like to ask a question, but I don't know too much about the subject."
Yeah, you see, Anita, I'm with
yeah.
Anita all the way. I'm going to be really provocative and go
Go
right.
for it.
We're talking about blockchain.
Yeah.
Let's be really basic. What is blockchain?
Blockchain. There you go. There's our first question.
We can actually discuss this properly, because I think a lot of us have no idea what we're talking about.
Go for it, Dominic. Thank you, Sarah.
I mean, if you really break down like the core fundamentals of where it started, the idea is that it is an immutable network of ledgers. In the core basics of it, that is what it's designed to do. It's designed to share data in an immutable fashion. So you have that trust element. You have the ability to say you always have a correct record of the data that's shared. So you can think from that point, wow, that could be used for anything. And I'm simplifying, please. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there are many
Simplifying
variations.
is good. Yeah.
Yeah. And we could go down some very, very dark rabbit holes. But the core crux of it is immutable data and the sharing of that data.
What does immutable mean? Just so we can get an even simpler word than immutable. Undoubtable data. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. So it can't be manipulated, changed, because, for example, let's just say you have the data set on one network, one node, for example, which is someone who runs a connection to the network. That's going to match and marry exactly to another node on the network. So if one of those nodes were to disappear, you still have a full copy of that data set.
Okay.
So the data is always accurate, or it should be, and most of the blockchain projects out there provide that solution.
Okay,
again,
so
I'm generalizing. I'm keeping it simple, hopefully.
So it's a completely encrypted data set that allows you to put your own personal information in just once, I take it. And also, if there's a transaction between, money transaction going on, then all the sellers and buyers are all part of that chain. Is that correct? Is that how it works?
Yes, to a degree. And when you start bringing money into the remit of blockchain, that's where I think there's a big grey area around regulation, use case. So whilst we all heard of and know about cryptocurrencies and the money side of the technology, that's not necessarily really what makes the world go round in that space, because industries want to use the technology, and the technology itself is what's important. The cryptocurrency is secondary, in my opinion.
Okay, so crypto is a classic example of, a blockchain example of passing money around, but it might not be money. It could be data. It could be a piece of artwork. It could be a piece of music. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay.
You have what you call non-fungible tokens, so NFTs, that you can package something up in an NFT and pass that around, and that is where the value is held.
Okay, so a digital art, for example, right?
Precisely.
Okay,
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so things like digital art, music, so it becomes your copyright. If you've created that piece of artwork, or you've created that song, it's immutable. It is owned by you. There is no way that can be copied. It has a data stamp, a record about who
Correct.
created it, when it was created, all of the data that's associated to that gets logged against that, and then is there forever, right? Because it's a decentralized thing. Is that correct? It's not put in a database somewhere.
Exactly,
Mm,
and that's the element of immutability.
yeah.
It is about making sure that data is accurate, it's verified,
Mm,
and it's accessible in real time. If you look at traditional databasing solutions, there are so many sort of um, clinch points in that traditional infrastructure and technology. It's great, don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of good reasons why traditional databasing is still widely used and will be used for many, many years. But there is also the argument that if you can now offer a more efficient, reliable, trusted solution in blockchain, why aren't we implementing that into industry? And the why is, well, hold on, there's still a lot of regulation to get around. There's still a lot of connectivity from traditional infrastructure to digital infrastructure, and there's a big bridge to cross there.
okay. And who owns the blockchain record? Is it just it's just out there somewhere? Is it? It's not actually owned. Is that a key characteristic of blockchain?
Well, it can be owned because it can be
Mm,
owned by the person who creates it,
yeah.
and that could be the data set. So, for example, let's just say I create a host of NFTs with data inputted into that. So it could be
Like a piece of
access
artwork.
or
Yeah.
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 So you would own that, but then once you transfer that NFT to say another wallet or another user,
Okay.
then they would then own that portion of it.
Ah,
So
okay. So I
the
could
the
sell my
network
artwork to
itself
someone
is
else. And
decentralized.
sorry, go on, Dominic.
So the network itself, so the network on which that sits on top of,
Yeah.
that is run by the sort of the node operators. Typically speaking, and again, I'm generalizing because there are so many blockchain and layer ones, as they're known, out there that change the way that happens. But the concept is to decentralize and avoid centralization of control of that data.
Okay. So someone writing a course, say for instance, I'm just thinking of Anita who's listening, and she writes a course on coaching, say, or something like that, or hypnotherapy or whatever. Actually,
Yep.
that could be digitized as a blockchain record and sold accordingly to people and just transferred from person to person, like a book can be, like a piece of artwork can be.
Correct,
Mm.
and I think and actually course and education is a really good example here
Ah, brilliant.
because
Yeah.
let's just say you create content and you don't want that content to be shared outside of your network.
Mm.
Now, you could make it that you can only share it with another verified user. So, in essence, a wallet. So the wallet will hold the core data that you create, and you share that with another wallet. Now, that other wallet has access to it to draw that information out and use it. And there are provisions that you can stop that from being reshared. So, yes, content now has its own value, and that value can be
Ah.
transferred and shared
Gotcha.
accordingly.
So here's an important point then, folks. So what Dominic is just saying there is that um, a piece of content, like say Anita's course on coaching, say for instance, who's listening, actually she can transfer that to someone that's paid for the course, but they can't copy it out to anybody else. So it becomes immutable, not copyable. So you can't do copy paste on it, for example. Can you?
You probably still can at this
Mm.
point, and I know there are projects that are working on that
I'll
from
stop
stopping
that.
that from
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
Okay. So in the future, this will be really secure as well. So, your data doesn't get copied by other people and reused. Let's just bring Mrs. Moderator back in. Sarah.
I'm just like like the rest of the listeners. I think I'm like, ooh, this is
Yeah. This is big
yeah,
stuff, right?
this is big stuff. This is futuristic stuff. But yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, John, I love this. He's quite provocative. So it would prove, for instance, that motor insurance premiums were or are not biased against ethnic minorities, as reported on the BBC last night. So
Oh,
didn't see that, so I
didn't
can't
see that.
comment. But
But motor insurance would be one example of blockchain, right? So your insurance data.
Yeah, but again, this is actually ironically one of the
Mm,
journeys that we've gone on with HyLabs.
Yeah.
We've almost gone full circle from starting as a purely decentralized finance solution to becoming more and more closely entwined with traditional infrastructure. So it then becomes about the data you input into that network. So the network is only as good as the data you put into it, and that's really key here. So insurance premiums, again, I'm connected to the automotive industry, so I understand it.
Yeah.
We have worked with insurers over
It's
the
a good
years.
example for you. Yeah.
Quite, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have worked with them, and we know that the big issue there is again accurate data. They trust the reports that they get.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have a vehicle. They have perhaps a police report for an accident. So there is data sets for them to use, but they have to rely on the individuals or the organizations giving them that data is accurate. So, and you can trust it. So now you start having cars, and this is a bit dystopian, but you've got cars where learner drivers have black boxes in them.
Yeah.
Now you know what that car's speed was when it had the accident. You know that they were playing with the radio at the same time.
On the mobile phone. Yeah.
Exactly. So, with that level of data, you can now actually be really accurate to say, that driver was not at fault because they were actually doing the speed limit. They weren't playing with their phone. They weren't playing with the radio. They were focusing. But however, the other car that pulled out in front of them is likely to have caused the accident because they've also got a dash cam.
Yeah, and actually hit the accelerator rather than the brake, for example. You could even capture that sort of data.
Exactly. So you now have good quality data. Now,
wow.
Taking John's question and sort of taking it to the next step, you then input that into the sort of the algorithm, and you put that into a network. That's great. You've got a data set.
Yeah.
Now you've got to use it. So, and this is where I suppose the sort of the ledger databasing aspect of blockchain technology will come into its own, because now you can have unmanipulated data set. So you've got accurate data points, so you can prove. So again, the BBC bit is a prime example of, and I'll be careful how I choose my words here, mainstream media portraying narratives. You can now disprove that with accurate data.
Yeah.
Because it can't be manipulated.
Brilliant.
So, and now you've got that information. So actually, where you have hotspots of high accidents is because the data proves it, not because of a narrative.
Ah, very interesting. And also, I guess with dash cam technology and things like that, then you can really start to glue all of this data sets together, and the insurance policy then can get driven on, on that basis. If there's an accident, it's immutable because there's lots of data about the accident in theory.
Yeah, but there is still a huge hurdle to overcome with all of this, though, and that's jumping the hurdle from where we have traditional infrastructure today,
indeed, databases,
and digital infrastructure in the future, which, as you can probably tell by our company name, sort of incorporates both. HyLabs,
hybrid,
we're a hybrid lab, we're a hybrid fintech, because we see that problem, and we spent 2 and a bit years researching projects that have tried to really run into digitization of data finance, for example, and they failed for various reasons, typically because regulation is a big barrier. For one,
of course,
regulators are still trying to understand the technology and how it can be used properly, but two, they don't have the data set to start with that really allows the technology to
fly,
showcase its its efficiencies.
So data set collection really, and some sort of repository that does that, which again is blockchain, right? I'm just thinking that every vehicle, for example, could have a blockchain record, and then every insurance policy has a blockchain record, and then every person has a blockchain record, and so it could go on forever, couldn't it? And then blockchains of blockchains and records of records.
So that's that's a really, really interesting point. And I recently met, and again, Dartmoor seems to be the place to be. So I'm aware of another co-founder who lives on Dartmoor, not far from myself, who is an absolute genius. He is, and his company have designed the ability to share node networking through vehicles.
Wow.
And he's working with some big manufacturers at the moment to embed his solution. So now that vehicle is providing data into the node network, and he's capturing that.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And that's someone from Dartmoor who's doing it in the southwest of the UK. And I have a real sort of thing about this. I really want to fly the flag for the southwest. There's a lot of great businesses down here, and
Yeah.
we often forget. We get forgotten about. Being the end of the country.
Well, with blockchain, you can be anywhere in the world, right? So there you go.
Exactly.
So
I look like a country bumpkin. I am a country bumpkin. But at the end of the day, I get the technology, and I get this use case. So you can be anywhere in this day and age.
Absolutely. And interestingly, just you talk about vehicles, and just a passing comment, I'll finish on this and we'll go to another example. But, theft and things like that for vehicles might be a secure technology that helps to make sure that, your car doesn't get pinched. And if it does, then, it could be traced somewhere else with blockchain tech.
Yeah. With that in mind, and again, being a bit of a visionary, quickly, AMPR cameras, camera network across the country. Different forces don't always speak to one another. It's a slow solution. If you digitize that properly, then you would have more accurate connectivity to, say, CCTV cameras. So
there you go.
Thefts,
Yeah.
muggings, data
endless,
point,
isn't it?
You now have the ability to do that in real time rather than retrospectively.
Okay.
So finding people, finding vehicles, whatever it might be, you can create sort of a visionary connection between different networks, and that's where the power could lead us.
We're probably about 20 years away from that, presumably. Yeah. Let's go to Mrs. Moderator. Sarah, what's going on in the feed? It looks like we're getting a bit more traffic now coming along.
Yeah, so a couple of things from John. How do you overcome pushback from the people in power now, like banks and massive companies, with things to lose, like control over all of us? A bit like the Bank of Dave.
Oh, I like that. Great example. The Bank of Dave. Yeah.
Great question. So this is why we changed our tact slightly when we first started. So when we first set out, we really wanted to be sort of decentralized in the finance space. And that's the saying, we wanted to use the technology to offer financial solutions for the traditional markets. And that was our sort of core remit, to really sort of use the blockchain solution and the blockchain technology to enable that.
Like access to credit, for example, or loans. Is that what you?
Yeah,
as an example.
But also the way we actually issue money and issue loans and issue commercial finance solutions. So it was more around that side of things. And we were working with a leading blockchain foundation, the biggest blockchain foundation in the world. They invited us to their annual event, which at that time was based in London back in November 22. We got introduced to the event. We got introduced to a bunch of their institutional clients. And we shared our vision with those clients, and they're all your household financial institutions. They are the big corporates of the world, and they are the leaders of those corporates. And their response was, we love the vision, we love the idea and the concept, but unless you start on our side of the traditional fence, we cannot engage. Now, that's not to say that they're not already exploring the technology. They're not using it. They are. They already have big resources and teams using and exploring how to deploy blockchain into their traditional systems.
Okay.
But those are very much internal systems. So, prime example, one of the leading financial institutions in the world claimed to have processed blockchain bonds. In reality, it was a mirror of a traditional record.
A smoke and mirror.
And blockchain was just there to showcase that it could be done in the future, but it wasn't actually a blockchain bond.
But it could have been.
Again, I'm keeping that general as much as I can.
Of course, yeah.
John, going back to your question, how are the powers that be looking at this? Again, I'll be careful with what I say here, but we're working with another financial institution here in the UK. They have looked at digitizing some of their internal solutions. they spent 2 years doing it and had to can the project because ultimately they are a bank. They're not a fintech. They're not a technology company.
Yeah, they're not regular. And yet new fintechs can create new banks, right, in the future. So the big banks might have to beware here if they can't get over their own regulation.
Yeah, and they're aware that there is competition coming.
Indeed.
And I think the big issue is still very much the traditional infrastructure is outdated. It's inefficient. It's not compatible to blockchain technology. So this is yet another hurdle that financial institutions need to get over, and actually prove that they can connect to the digital systems of the future.
Indeed, and be under threat from competition as well, I'm guessing, which is very healthy, I think. Sarah, sorry, Dominic, you were going to just comment on that. Sorry.
So you hit the nail on the head, and that's part of our remit and our vision is to give back to users, customers. That is why we set out to do what we do. We want the customer to benefit, and ultimately they will get access to better finance solutions for one, and lower borrowing costs for two, because we've made the market more competitive.
And there is an example of new opportunity that's coming up through change, right? So not all change means jobs disappear. New jobs turn up and new ways of operating turn up. New banks turn up. New financial institutions turn up using different technology, and really put the cat amongst the pigeons here. Interesting. Very interesting. Sarah.
Yeah, you see, the reason why John can ask intelligent questions about this is working with the founder of a property blockchain that would allow fractional ownership of a house.
You see, that's such a complicated thing, isn't it, Sarah? That fractional ownership, which is a thing now. Yeah,
I have a feeling I know who you're talking about, John, because I know the founder.
Well, you two need to connect then, obviously.
We did just before this.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Okay,
and
good.
I saw that he was one of our mutual connections.
There you go.
So I perhaps know who you're talking about, and I know him quite well. And that's, some of the what you can do with blockchain technology in terms of fractionalizing house ownership and property ownership. That is a phenomenal use of the technology.
A brilliant use case.
However, and there is a however here, for the mainstream use case and user, that is still a long way off.
Yeah, but the possibility is there with the ledger, right? And actually the complexity of those kind of contracts can be written quite simply with the right technology.
And the UK, and we get bashed in the UK, and dare I say the dreaded B word, but we get bashed that people look at the UK and say, well, we're so behind, we're outdated, we're fuddy-duddies, but we've just passed the electronic. Well, apparently, says the country bumpkin. Who knows?
According to whom? That's what I want to know.
But you look at things like end of last year, we've just passed the electronic documentation bill. That is a huge piece of legislation that will push the UK ahead of so many other leading economies in the world, because now we have the ability to really use digital signatures, digital documentation to get closer to that vision of the co-founder or the founder that John and I are talking about here. We're getting that bit closer now. That's one step in the right direction to really bringing, traditional solutions into the digital era.
Yeah, I could give you a great example of how blockchain would work really well. To a simple example, like my auntie died recently in Germany, and it's going to be about 12 months before actually her estate is settled, that money can be transferred between her and a small amount, and it's only we're not talking about big amounts here, but just the amount of data which has needed to pass between myself and the banks in Germany, for example, that just want endless amounts of proof that is immutable to them, but in traditional systems it's virtually impossible to do. And they want me to jump through all sorts of hoops of burning fire, like translating wills and things like that into their language. And yet with a digital contract, it would be really simple and would be completely, be done in weeks rather than months.
A digital contract and perhaps a redesigned and reimagined digital ID.
Yeah, indeed, and that's my point. Yeah, so they know who I am, they know
Yeah.
who the person who's deceased is, and everything then just adds up in terms of a record that can be just passed around. So yeah, let's just bring in Sarah again. So anything else coming up in the feed, Sarah?
I don't know. Dominic looked like he was just about to say something.
Oh, go on,
But
Dominic. Sorry,
I was
yeah,
going to sort of elaborate on the
yeah,
digital ID bit, and I wasn't
yeah.
sure if you want me to bring that up
No,
now or
go
not.
for it. Go for it. Yeah.
So that's actually something we designed early doors at HyLabs, and
Mm.
we redesigned digital IDs for well, we designed it for commercial finance. We
Yeah.
designed it for the financial industry in mind, and there is a huge issue around trust, verified user, verified data, the ability to connect with real-time data as well to digitize commercial finance. But what you've just touched on there, Andrew, is
Mm.
another example of where we could deploy that solution in the future, and we could license the digital ID technology to other industries. Is data sharing.
Indeed.
I kind of liken it to, I would love to get my hands on the NHS, give it a shake, turn it upside down, get rid of the fat in the middle, so to speak, and make it an efficient beast that it should be. And
Yeah.
I'd start with record keeping, because with accurate real-time record keeping using some digital technology, you're going to get rid of the middle office that is constantly pushing paper around inefficiently, making mistakes. You then have accurate patient information at hand at
Perfect.
any one time. And
Yeah.
we never designed our ID solution to do that specifically, but ironically, that's where it could be used. Our use case, because obviously this is our business model, this is what we've set out to do, is to deploy that into commercial finance.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, that ID solution could be used for law. It could be used for cases and lawyers. It could be used for the NHS for patient record keeping.
Brilliant.
It could be used for insurance companies for vehicles and the driver and their user data. People would say that's dystopian and it's going to create more control over the individuals, but there are ways you can actually anonymize that information and remove that control aspect. So whilst
Yeah.
I understand the point, is it controlling? Is it going to turn us all into slaves for the powers that
For the
be?
AI robot to take over. Yeah.
Quite
Yeah.
potentially, but I doubt
Mm.
it, because
No.
there are ways you can anonymize the data and remove that burden and do so carefully. And that's actually something that we touched on before coming on the call, Andrew, is quantum computing, because
Yeah.
that for a lot of people that is a huge concern, that with quantum computing, our information, our data, anything we've put out into the ether is going to be available to hackers, to to corporates, to governments. And we believe we've created a solution that will fight and negate that quantum aspect in the future.
So yeah, it
We
could.
believe.
Yeah.
It's not
Hopefully.
tested, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So not too much of a fear factor for quantum computing. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, got it. Okay, Sarah, Mrs. Moderator.
Yeah, so Rebecca asks a great question here. Can it have a role to play in preventing fake news?
Brilliant question. Hi, Rebecca. Good morning.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah,
Yes.
no more fake news.
And I love this question for many reasons,
That's a brilliant
because
question.
we do live in a world where, unfortunately, fake news is everywhere. But then you have to question which is real news and which is fake news. So you're asking that sort of verified question on both sides of the fence. Which is fake, which is real, and which one do you trust? Well, if you had a trusted entity operating, and because they are a verified user of a node network, for example, but the data sets that they pull from a ledger are there, they can showcase them and say, look, this is the data that we have. This is immutable data, and from that, these are the results. So now you have accurate information being shared because it has come from trusted sources. Now you could argue then, well, hold on, is the BBC not a trusted source? Well,
Yeah.
leave it at that.
You see, I was going to bring something in. So when
Yeah,
you say something you said resonated, obviously the credibility of the data or the accuracy of the data is only as good as who is inputting it.
yeah.
So if you then go, as you say, how do you know that what is being input is true?
A genuine fake, as John says.
Yeah. So, and this goes back to, again, one of the sort of roadblocks that we hit early doors when we were sort of researching the project is a lot of projects failed because of regulation and deploying technology against non-existent regulation or bad regulation that's in place in certain countries. And the other is actually the data that goes into the network. So this is why we're saying, well, hold on, how do we get good quality data?
Good, clean data.
And again, this is something I'm really sort of like quite hot on. And I spoke about this at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast morning last week.
Oh, in Bristol, was it?
In Plymouth, in Devon.
Okay.
And again, really good point. Is it trusted, and where is the data coming from?
Yeah.
But if you now have sources of data that are immutable, so prime example here is a black box in a vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, that black box is pulling the data from all the electric points from that vehicle, and it's not being manipulated, it's not being changed or managed in any other way. So you know that data is accurate. Okay, and if that data is accurately shared by a verified user into a network, you now have trusted information in the network.
Wow.
So something that we're working on with our digital ID solution is how do we do that with commercial finance? Prime example, we have open banking in the UK, which is amazing because with open banking, we can now accurately see what goes in and out of people's bank accounts. We can in real time see the financial health of a business. You then take that raw data, digitize it, put it through some algorithms if you want to for various reasons. And you could do that for risk management, treasury management, applications is our example. You can now push that information in a way to sort of create that trusted element.
Wow. Gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's our vision for commercial finance. If we get the data sets right at the beginning, which we know we can do,
Yeah.
the middle bit of the application, so the connection from the business owner, the borrower, to the lender who's offering the loan, you have that clear transparency that's immutable between the two people, individuals, or companies, I should say. You then take it to the next stage, which will be future development for us, where you remove that middle office of financial institutions. You remove that burden, that cost barrier, which will bring the cost of borrowing down for the borrower, increasing the profitability of financial institutions, which financial institution doesn't like the sound of that.
Indeed.
But you now have trusted data all the way through to the application stage, underwriting stage.
Yeah, I was going to say the underwriting stage.
Because you have that, you can then think about real-time risk management of financial institutions and businesses.
Fascinating. Wow. So things like that data set, if it's a personal data set, for example, I'm just thinking, or for a business, then applying for a business mortgage or a personal mortgage, for example, the mortgage providers can come to you. If you want car insurance, rather than you having to apply for car insurance, actually all the data's there. So the insurance company can just say to you, this will be your new policy. And by the way, we can offer you a cheaper one.
Yes and no. So we've designed it so it's not that way around.
Right.
Ironically.
Okay.
So we've designed it so it's the borrower who controls the data.
Okay. The borrower controls the data.
Is where at the moment, and this is where I think a lot of misinformation, fake information, fake news is coming from, is that institutions and industries have too much data on us and use that to tell us what they think our premium should be for car insurance, or the APR should be for our loan, or the credit rating that we have. They're telling us what they think that should be. Whereas if you think about this and you take a big step back and the vision for this, if you have one of our reimagined and redesigned digital ID solutions, and you have real-time data that you're inputting without realizing, you can then choose to share that data with financial institutions.
Yeah.
So if you want to go and get a better loan, you want to go and get a better insurance premium, you want to go and get a personal mortgage, for example, you can use your data set for
Got it.
your benefit, your power,
Yeah.
and you can demand and drive the conversation because you're in control. So
Interesting.
again, I go back to this element of control and dystopian world that we potentially are leading towards. The irony is, it actually puts more power back to Joe Public and businesses and individuals.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about that personal element, and I'm worried about going to a can of worms here, but I'm just trying to make it relatable to all of us. Bank fraud, things like that, personal bank fraud. Does that give us an added layer of security, do you think, if it's our data?
Yeah, and again, that was actually one of the remits that we embedded and baked into our sort of mission and vision.
Brilliant.
Was to reduce the fraud aspect, because again, you have a verified user that is immutable and it's bona fide. You then have the ability to say, well, hold on, that user has created a journey in their financial records and their profiling.
Beautifully
Now,
said.
you will see the ability or inability for fraud. You will also then get rid of bad actors who are trying to sort of impregnate and interrupt traditional markets and infrastructures, because there is no barrier. Someone picks up a phone and says, "Hi, I'm calling from X. Can you just please confirm your card details?
Yeah,
We
exactly.
have them on record." Well,
Yeah.
sorry, no.
Yeah.
But if you had a verified user from a financial institution acting and engaging with a verified user on a network, you now know both of you are
genuine,
verified.
immutable.
And I use that word a lot for obvious reasons. You're both verified, and then you know that the data you're sharing to one another is accurate.
Hence the trust. And that's the really important thing here between the transactions. Trusted transactions make the world go round here. I'm wondering. Let's just pick up Mrs. Moderator. Sarah, any thoughts that you've got here?
How does the man not have? Yeah, so obviously this is really early stages, and you're talking about commercial finance and companies accessing this sort of stuff. When will the little man on the street be able to access this sort of stuff?
Good question. There are elements that are already being put out there. And again, it depends on the use case, it depends on the industry. There's a bunch of applications where blockchain will be used for Joe Public, as I'd call it. And that's coming. But long term, I think governments need to regulate and legislate correctly. And I'm fortunate that I've joined the local chamber to myself, and we get some regulatory roundtables with the Bank of England, for example, and we're constantly trying to knock on the doors of Parliament and government and say, look, speak to us. We want to solve your problems. We want to solve the fraud issue for Joe Public. We want to solve the fraud issue for businesses.
For businesses, and public.
And trade finance is a prime example where there's a lot of fraud. Invoice duplication and incorrect settlement of those invoices. We could save billions every year for lost money using technology.
Correct.
And we've tried to reach out through our MP. So if anyone's listening and has connections, please put me in touch, because we're stood here, banging the drum saying we've got a solution, but people they either close their ears and don't want to listen to the solution because they're afraid of what rabbit hole they're going to go down, and it is a deep rabbit hole. But if we're going to make real change, we need to do something about it, and we need to listen to these conversations.
I just think that's so articulately said, and thank you for that. And well done. I just think that's such a difficult subject you've come across there, Dominic, and you've handled it really, really well. We're going to talk about your business now in a moment, but let's just give you a quick round of applause for what a difficult subject made really quite. Dominic, you've got just the way you're talking is, I'm sure that our listeners and those that will listen to the replay will really value the things that you've just sort of, just articulated so cleanly for us. Thank you. That is just really brilliant. Let's move on to your business, and just thinking about HyLabs for a moment, and blockchain and your business perspective. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing at the moment. And I know you're speaking about blockchain to universities and things like that at the moment, and really pushing this narrative. Tell us a little bit more about that for you, and give us a shout out of your HyLabs business for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
And as you probably tell, I'm extremely passionate
Yeah.
about what we do, and I hope that comes through
It
because
does.
it gets me out of bed every day. I
We're
love
glad
what I
about
do.
that.
And my wife and children, I see as much of them as I can. But
Of course.
if I could work 24 hours a day doing what I'm doing right now, I would genuinely. I love
Yeah.
it, and I love where it's going to go, and I love the benefit people will get from it. And I don't say that for scoring points, as politicians would typically you do. I'm saying it because it's why it's built. It's baked into our vision.
Yeah.
And with regards to HyLabs, as I sort of already alluded to earlier on in the conversation, we set out to democratize access to finance. That is the key remit.
Oh, I like that.
Which is a great strapline, but
Isn't it?
it's baked into what we do. It's baked into the design of the technology, design of the systems that we're building. It is the sort of all-encompassing ideology of where we're going.
Ideology, beautiful word.
And ultimately, HyLabs is a hybrid lab. We are a hybrid between traditional technology and
Bridging
blockchain
that gap.
technology.
Yeah.
And it's not just necessarily just blockchain. There is an element of AI, so artificial intelligence there. There's good algorithmic coding and good databasing. So we don't always have to sort of beat the drum about blockchain. It's about using multiple tools to get us to where we want to get to
democratize the whole financial thing for business, right?
Exactly. And that's starting from the very beginning with good quality data through verified users into a verified network. And ultimately, that's when the real benefit of cost efficiencies, time efficiencies come in, but also reducing fraud burden and the cost of that. Because we forget, and I touched on that point just briefly again, the cost of fraud in the UK, and I may skew my numbers here, but it costs the UK something like £19 billion every year. That costs the taxpayer. And that is a huge burden on us, on our public services, because that's money not going to the frontline services. That's not money going to our education system.
Exactly.
Because it's being lost, because it's being managed by government, being put back in to basically make good people who are being manipulated,
defrauded.
And government, whichever government it is, get a hard time on this, because they're there to protect us ultimately, and they do that. And what people don't realize and they don't see is the money that they spend on dealing with fraud that could be going to better use cases like the NHS.
That's right.
And going back into our frontline services, going back into our education. It's money that's being lost because of fraudsters. And that's the tip of the iceberg, and that's just one piece of it. But ultimately, it goes to seeing that vision of creating trusted industries, trusted interactions between businesses and institutions, between Joe Public and institutions, and even Joe Public and companies and businesses. If we can build that trust back up again and use technology to help us do that, who doesn't love that?
Exactly. And it gets rid of all those resistance points, doesn't it? And makes things a lot smoother. And therefore we pay less for things. And, that's the bottom line, and makes things easier. And I really get that. And HyLabs, that's what you're doing right now. And, we were talking about this earlier, that even though you are a new fintech, you're a startup, you're actually bootstrapping a lot of your work at the moment, which is fascinating. That you're able to pay for itself at the moment because you've got real clients giving you, contracts right now, and you're a 2-year-old organization working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, which is what any startup needs to do. And we talk a lot about startups on this channel. So it's great to see that, you are enthusiastic about this, but you're also, having to put the hard work in. Absolutely, which is what you need to do when you're bootstrapping.
Yeah, exactly that. And we're starting. We're not. So whilst HyLabs is our fintech,
Yeah.
and that is designed so that the fintech itself is designed to build technology for financial institutions for the use of commercial finance. That's what HyLab does.
Yeah.
It creates a bridge from traditional infrastructure to digital infrastructure and new technologies.
Yeah.
Now, on the side of that, we also then we're in the process of finalizing development and getting ready to deploy our own solution to demonstrate how that technology can be used.
Fascinating.
So we're about to launch in March and April our own digital credit broker,
Wow.
which will allow businesses to come onto a platform and basically search for. Prime example, we're starting with property finance or commercial finance for the property sector. It will allow developers, housing companies, in that space to search the market to get genuine whole of market accessibility to say, actually, I'm not going to go to my broker because they're always going to push me to the one lender that they always get the best terms and rates with.
Indeed, yeah.
Ironically, that broker gets the best kickback with that lender. Whereas we're saying, well, hold on, come to our marketplace. It's a bit like a certain Meerkat or somewhere like that for Joe Public.
Comparethemarket.com.
Yeah, exactly. But you're now getting a whole of market visibility as a business owner. So you can come onto the platform. You can put your search parameters in of what you're looking for. You can match against all of the lenders on the back of the panel. And let's just say, prime example is a bridging loan for a commercial building, and it could be an acquisition. You put in the parameters and you match against, say, 20 out of 100 lenders because that's the product that you're looking for. As a business owner, that could take you weeks normally to get that sort of information.
Absolutely.
But what you can then do is you can then assess, which is actually the best deal for me. Who's giving me the best rates? Who's giving me the best fees? What are the sort of parameters around the loan themselves that I don't normally see because a broker deals with it won't necessarily tell me up front, because commercial lending is unregulated. So we're already thinking, well, hold on, retail finance, consumer finance is heavily regulated. And, our governing bodies, the FCA, government have said we want that treating our customer fairly idea, that solution, we want that to merge into commercial finance. And we're already baking that in now, because why shouldn't businesses get quick, accurate, cost-efficient data to make them help inform decisions to improve their business and let them actually focus on what they do best, and that's run their business.
Lovely.
Not go and find finance or rely on a broker who may not necessarily give them the best deal because,
And there's a great example of reducing all the resistance for business benefit. Fantastic, Dominic. Mrs. Moderator, let's just bring you in, and then we'll need to move on because we're coming to the end, folks. We're running out of time.
I just think it's fascinating, and I think anybody who's listening that wants to know more or actually use what you're doing, they just need to connect with you. I've put all your details in the feed. I'll put them in again. And I just think it's fascinating that, the diversity of what we discuss is unbelievable. We can go from the sublime to the extreme. So, it's great. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating what the future might look like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Well said. And just a quick one, Sarah, while you're on a roll here, let me just bring up our CTA. So quick one on Leaders Live and our call to action for folks listening.
I think we speak for ourselves today, quite frankly.
Well said.
We hit the diverse topics. If there's things you'd like to hear discussed, let us know. But coming back to how does Leaders Live run? We fund Leaders Live. We absolutely love what we do. Andrew's passionate, as you know, about what he does. Do subscribe. Please spread the word. And actually, if there is anybody listening on the podcast or on the live show that thinks, do you know what? I think I really believe in what they're doing. I would love to help sponsor them. Please get in touch with us. We'd love to talk to you.
We certainly would. Yeah, babies. Well said. That's brilliant. Yeah, exactly. Because, we're doing 25/7 and 8 days a week, as well. So because we're passionate about what we do here. And I'm talking about being passionate. The goose for next week, folks. We've got a real treat. We're doing a breakfast show format next week. We've got 3 people on the breakfast show format, which is Reverend Andy Gray, live illustrator. We've got Rebecca Jenkins, CEO of RGen and leadership consultant, and we've got Kieran O'Donnell, virtual FD. And we're going to be talking about beyond midlife, folks, how to thrive in the second half of life. So again, a tricky subject we're going to be picking up on, and we can't wait to talk about that and kick that about. So please come and join us again on that. And Dominic, thank you so much. Where's Dominic? Let's just bring Dominic back again. Where are we? Side by side. So, Dominic, what a fantastic session we've had today. Thank you so much for being a brilliant hangout guest today and making stuff so articulate. There's such a complex subject, and I really understand it a lot more better now using a leader's life phrase.
No, thank you both for having me. It's been great, and we're at the start of our journey, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And I actually quite enjoy doing bits like this because it's great to
yeah.
share the story, share the vision,
keep banging the drum,
and hopefully educate some people. And that's what life is all about. It's good education and the right sort of education.
Totally. And the whole thing about blockchain is all about democratizing, finance and business solutions. And it's a phenomenal ideology, as we've just been describing today. Dominic, thank you again. You've been a superstar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to wave goodbye to you now on our usual bye-bye screen. So thank you very much for listening again, folks. It's been a brilliant session today. Rock and roll. Here we go. So we're just going to wave goodbye to you now. Have a great week ahead. May God bless you. May God's love shine on you during the week. And we'll see you again next week, folks. Cheers for now. Thanks again, Dominic. And thanks to Mrs. Moderator. What a brilliant show. Whoa. There we go. Bye for now. Boom. Bye-bye, everybody.